I'm Tyler Austin from Gungnir Strategic. Thank you so much for watching. In this video, I'm going to go over my rifle setup, or technically pistol. Not only the how, but more importantly, the why. I occasionally get questions on this in terms of why I have my rifle set up the way I do. So I thought I'd make a video on it, and hopefully you get something out of it, and maybe it makes you think about things that you might not have previously thought about in terms of rifle setup. So with that being said, the upper, this is an 11.5-inch BCM. I'm a big fan of 11.5, especially if you are running suppressed, because in my opinion, this is just a really good barrel length, particularly when running suppressed, that still keeps the gun short and compact and easily maneuverable, particularly for CQB, but at the same time, that 11.5-inch barrel gives you still pretty good performance out of 5.56, where it still makes for a good general purpose rifle. You can still easily reach out to 300 yards and still have good terminal effective ballistics out to 300 yards with 11.5. Now, if you're not running suppressed, you could go with a 13.5 or a 14.5 and still have a good short rifle that's easily maneuverable, again, particularly for like CQB. But also now you have an even longer barrel, which can give you even better performance out at range. So if you're not running suppressed, I'd go a little bit longer. But for a suppressed rifle, 11.5 and 12.5, in my opinion, is the way to go. As for the lower, this is just an Aero Precision lower. I'm a big fan of their lowers. Their lowers have been nothing but good to me. People like to get all wrapped around the axle about lowers. Let me tell you, if there's a place to spend the money, it's not the lower, it's the upper. The upper is where the money needs to be spent. The lowers, I mean, quite frankly, virtually any lower will do. Lowers are not that hard to manufacture, and the lower is just something you don't need to spend a lot of money on. I've had nothing but good things to say about Aero lowers, and I've used them quite a bit. As for the charging handle, this particular charging handle is a BCM. It came with the upper. In terms of an extended charging handle, this is the best one I've used. I am honestly not a big fan of extended charging handles. Quite frankly, I hate them quite a bit because these things just tend to be big hooks that like to hook on shit when you are presenting the rifle, or pistol in this case. As for extended charging handles, this BCM has been the least intrusive and the least obnoxious, so I've kept it so far, although it does still tend to occasionally hook on slings and other kit when I'm presenting the rifle. So occasionally I consider the idea of replacing it, just putting a standard AR charging handle, because those are still very functional, yet they don't hook on anything, or at least they're a lot less likely to hook on anything. The sling, this sling is a Daisho Tactical 2-point padded sling. I absolutely love this sling. This sling has become my favorite sling on the market. I have become a very big fan in recent of padded slings, particularly if you're running a 1-inch sling, because not only does it add comfort when you're using the rifle all day long, but also it really prevents that sling from flipping around, which is very, very obnoxious when you quickly need to loosen or tighten the sling. I did a review recently on this sling. Again, this is a Daisho Tactical 2-point padded sling. Absolutely love it. So moving on to the optic and the riser. This particular riser, this is a GBRS Lerna, so this is a 291 riser. I'm a big fan of these taller risers for a variety of different reasons. It makes it so that way I don't have to move my head at all when I'm presenting the rifle. So it's very similar to that of when you're presenting a pistol, particularly a pistol with a red dot. You don't move your head at all. You just drive that pistol and you bring the sight to your eyes rather than trying to bring your eyes to the sight. These risers allow for that same mechanic with a rifle. Also, they're really great to shoot passively under night vision too, because obviously it sits up higher and it's easier to align the tube with the sight. Also, these are very advantageous when you're shooting with anything on your head or your face, like CBRN, gas masks, winter wear on your head, or even just ear pro. You don't have to get your head lower on the rifle in order to look through your sight. So it just makes shooting with things on your head, whether it's just ear pro or a gas mask or whatever, night vision, it just makes shooting with things on your head and on your face a lot easier. So that's why I virtually on all my go-to rifles, I have either one of these GBRS Lernas on there or a Unity Fast or something similar of similar height. The red dot itself, this is a Primary Arms 25mm Classic Series. This is something I've been using for several months now, and I absolutely love it. I picked up another one of these because I liked it so much. For the price, it's a whole $130, and I absolutely love it, and it has been nothing but good to me so far. The big selling point when I originally got this, I actually got this originally for another rifle, but when I shot it passively under night vision, I liked it so much that I put it on this particular rifle, and I got another one for the rifle I stole it off of. I really like this 25mm lens, particularly for shooting under night vision, because it just has a wider lens and it's easier to find that dot when passively shooting under night vision. So I'm a big fan of this. It's also really nice for just general shooting too, because unlike a micro dot, you get a little bit of a bigger lens, and to me, I just prefer shooting with that slightly larger lens. Big fan of this. Again, this is a Primary Arms 25mm Classic Series. In terms of optic placement, so I have this red dot pretty much as far forward as I can get it on the receiver. And the reason for that is because when I'm shooting under night vision, if this was further back, particularly with these taller mounts, when you're presenting the rifle, especially from like a high ready, if it's further back, it's going to have a tendency to collide with your tubes on the way up, which definitely is not cool, especially when you buy your own tubes. Smacking your several $1,000 pair of nods with your optic is not cool. So it's especially when you buy your own tubes, it's a lot more than just a nuisance at that point. So that's why I have the optic, the red dot, as far forward as I can get it on the receiver, so that way it's less likely to bang into my tubes when I'm presenting the rifle. Also, I do plan on getting a riser, or I'm sorry, a magnifier for this, so that's going to give me room for eventually when I get a magnifier for this. Moving on from there, this is a BCM grip, BCM gunfighter grip. I've chopped it down pretty significantly, so that way it's not so long. I'm a big fan of these BCM gunfighters. I pretty much buy these exclusively for forward grips. So moving on from there, this is a Surefire M640. I'm a big fan of Surefire. When it comes to weapon-mounted lights, I've had a lot of misfortune. I have destroyed so many weapon lights, not even like intentionally or things that obviously would break lights. I get lemons all the time. Me and weapon-mounted lights just don't get along. And Surefire has been one of the only lights that I've had success with in terms of them still working over a period of time. That and Enforce lights, actually. I haven't broken an Enforce light yet, too. So take that for what it's worth. But Surefire lights and Enforce, those are the two lights I really like because I have yet to break one of those. As for weapon light placement, my preference is always to place the weapon light on my dominant side. I'm right-handed, so it's on the right-hand side of the rifle. This is primarily for CQB considerations. When I'm slicing on my dominant side, i.e. my right side, the light is on that leading edge of the slice, so that way I'm going to get a lot less backlighting if I'm using the white light. But also this is for framing too, so that way when I am snapping a frame, if you don't know what framing is, that's when you attack a corner from the door frame rather than fully committing to the room. When I'm framing, the light is not going to bash into the door frame. I used to run lights on my non-dominant side of the rifle, so that way I can use my support hand to use a push button but I took many a chunks out of door frames by not clearing the light all the way enough when I'm driving the rifle up from the frame. So that's why I've gone to putting the weapon light on my dominant side. Again, it's primarily for CDB consideration. Some people will ask, well, what about when you're slicing on your offside? Well, when I'm slicing on my offside, I actually roll the rifle. So I'm rolling the rifle. So now the light is more or less at a 90 degree. So I'm not getting the backlighting as much as if I was just keeping the rifle more or less parallel. I actually roll the rifle. So now the light is at a 90 degree more or less, and this also works just fine for framing. So that's why my preference is to put the light on my dominant side. Now, because I'm running the light on the dominant side, so I don't have access to it easily, at least with my support hand, I am running a dual switch. This particular one is a Unity Axon. I'm a big fan of this. My only complaint with it is I wish the buttons were reversed. So the circular button here, this operates the light, and the flat button operates your lamp. I personally wish it was reversed. That's just a personal preference, but either way, I am a big fan of these. It gives you a 2-button switch, a dual switch, but it doesn't take up a lot of space. So I'm a big fan of it. It is pretty expensive too, which I'm not a fan of either. For what it is, it's pretty expensive, but they do work, and I really do like the design. Now, because this rifle is set up for night vision use, and I am running a dual switch, I am personally running a light cover. So this is a 100 Concepts light cover. I'm big fan of this. Whenever you are running night vision, or you just have a rifle set up for night vision, especially if you are running a dual switch or a pressure pad for that light, in my opinion, you need to have a way to either cover that light or turn off the light or set it to IR. So that way you do not have any white light NDs, because inevitably, especially if you're running a pressure switch where both your pressure switch for your lamp and your light are flat, so there's no difference for them, but even in this situation, I'm still running a cover, you will inevitably accidentally press your white light switch rather than the switch for your IR illuminator or laser, and you will have a white light ND, which can be rather problematic if you're running night vision. So if you're running night vision and you have a rifle that's set up for night vision, I highly suggest you set up your rifle so that way you either have a cover on the light, or you have one of those lights where you can rotate the head and either turn the light off or set it to an IR mode. So that way you do not have any white light NDs. With the cover, right, if I want the white light, all I do is just come over, pop that cover off, and now I have access to my white light. And then if I want to recover, I just cover it back up. Talking about night vision, your lambs. So personally, in my opinion, you should set your lamp as far forward as you can, unless you are running it on some sort of riser like a GBRS Hydra or some other riser for the lambs that have come out on the market. So if you're not running it on a riser, run it all the way forward so that way you don't get any illuminator or worse, laser obstruction with your hand. I don't know why this has become popular in recent years where people are running the laser further back and their hand is forward of the laser. Not a fan of that at all. You will inevitably get some obstruction when you least want it. So I don't know why that has become popular. I get it. It gets the weight further back on the rifle and whatnot, and allows your hand to go more forward on the rifle. But in my opinion, that's really stupid because you will get some obstruction at some point. It's just bound to happen. So my opinion, run the laser as far forward as you can. As for the suppressor, this is a Silencer Co. 36M. I'm a big fan of this suppressor. It's modular, so I can run it shorter or longer. This is it in its K configuration, i.e. its short variation, but I can make it longer if I want. I'm a big fan of the ASR mount. It's easy. It locks up nice and tight. The only thing I wish, this is a baffled suppressor, although the back pressure isn't horrible, it does add back pressure, and it's definitely noticeable as compared to like a flow-through can. So that would be like my only complaint with it. I wish it was flow-through, but other than that, this is a fantastic suppressor, and I really, really, really like it. I can put this on anything from basically from 9mm and smaller. So it's very modular, and I can use it on a lot of different guns, and which is obviously nice for a suppressor because, well, getting suppressors is still a pain. Although the times are coming down, supposedly. Generally speaking, when it comes to suppressors, I prefer shorter cans. I'm not just going for noise reduction. It's to tame the blast. Obviously, you get some noise reduction out of it, but in my opinion, when it comes to combative use, suppressors have bigger advantages over just noise reduction. Noise reduction is certainly a benefit, but it's not a priority when it comes to suppressors for combative use. So yeah, that is my rifle setup. Like I said, everything has a purpose, and hopefully you got something out of this. Maybe some pointers or some thoughts that you might not have thought of when it comes to rifle setup, particularly for like night vision use and so forth. So hopefully you got something out of this. If you did, please like and subscribe. I'm Tyler Austin from Gungear Strategic. Thank you so much for watching.